Hello and welcome to episode 4 of Wrong Place, Wrong Crime. Before we get into this episode, I want to make 2 points. First point in this episode is some of the content is going to be a little bit rough. Some of the subject material is going to be pretty tough to listen to. So just wanted to give that warning to all the listeners. Also, second point I want to make is that let's all remember again, like we talked about in episode 1, there were 4 girls that were lost that night and their parents never got to see them again and they didn't get to come home. And so let's just remember these parents and what they've suffered through for the last 30 years. Now, episode 4 is going to focus on the last 40 minutes there in the yogurt shop. It is pretty rough. Again, gave you that warning earlier. Some of the material, it's going to be pretty tough to listen to, but I believe we need to hear it because we all need to understand the type of evil that was done here and the type of evil it takes to do something like this. This was not a robbery gone wrong. This wasn't an impulse crime. This was planned out. This was someone who targeted these girls. This was someone who knew that these girls were going to be there by themselves, closing the store. Did the perpetrators know that there were going to be 4 girls there that night? Now, I don't believe that, and we'll talk about that in another episode. I have a theory that I don't believe because it had been cased. I think they thought there were going to be 2 girls that night. And they were surprised that there were 4, but we'll talk about that in another episode. But again, this was an act of premeditated pure evil. These girls were targeted. This wasn't, again, a robbery gone wrong. These criminals knew exactly what they were going to do when they got to this store at the end of the night. Also remember, this is a theory of what happened in those 40 minutes, backed by evidence that was found at the scene. So this is a speculative theory, what we're going to be talking about for the rest of this episode. At 10:47, Jennifer, as we know, locks the front door and turns the store sign to closed. We know the younger girls were in the back because Tim Stryker and Margaret Sheehan never saw them in the store during their time there from 10:40 to 10:47. If the younger girls came out from the back, it could have happened in the next 16 minutes, but we do not know. Eliza was a stickler for the store rules. So the girls were surely going about their business when shortly after 11 p.m., with Jennifer on her step stool cleaning the dispensers of yogurt, and Eliza with her hand on a rag cleaning the counter, one of the men came to the front and ordered a Coke. Eliza got the Coke from the refrigerator and put it on the counter. She must have then reached to get a styrofoam cup full of ice to give to the customer when something happened. And that something was pulling a gun. We know that because the Coke and the styrofoam cup would be found there on the counter later on. One of the guns, or the gun that was pulled, either had to be a .22 caliber or a .380. We know there were 2 guns at the scene because of the evidence that shows 2 guns were later used to kill the girls. The gun or guns are pulled. Eliza is told to open the register. We're at 11:03. That no sale is rung up and the till is emptied and carried away to the back. The girls are quickly moved to the back of the store, out of sight of anyone walking by the front of the store. Now, in the diagram, you will see or have seen in an earlier episode, the dimensions are not described. the back area of the yogurt shop is small. There's not a lot of room to move around. There's not a lot of room for a lot of people, which was one of the biggest negatives towards one of the other theories that 4 or 5 men were involved. Well, that would have put 8 to 9 people in this small back area. And that is almost impossible. When the girls are taken to the back, the 4 girls are told to remove their clothes. Once the clothes are removed, some of the girls' clothes will be used to restrain them. Others of the clothes will be folded and neatly stacked back by the back door. All the girls' clothes and shoes will be found close to that back door. 3 of the girls, Eliza, Jennifer, and Sarah, were gagged with items of their own clothing, and the gags were knotted at the back of their heads. Sarah and Eliza would then have their hands tied behind their backs. The fear and anguish that these 4 poor girls went through during this time period is heartbreaking and inconceivable. All 4 girls at some point were sexually assaulted during this time in the back of the store. We know that because of DNA that will later prove essential in this case. The girls are then forced to lie on their stomach, face down, near the back door. And maybe for a few fleeting moments, they thought the men may leave the back door and leave them alive. Unfortunately, that is when the first shot, then the second shot, then the third shot, and then the 4th shot rang out. Eliza, Jennifer, and Sarah all lie dead with a single .22 caliber shot to the back of their head. The 4th probably was into Amy. As she knew her fate of her friends, she jerked her head, and the shot was not a fatal shot. Amy, not being dead, crawls a few feet to the middle of the room, where she is fatally shot with a second gun, a .380. The other 3 girls, after being shot, are repositioned with their bodies turned over, face up, and stacked on top of one another. The 2 perpetrators then, trying to destroy as much of the crime scene and evidence, started a fire with products on the storage rack near the girl's body at around 11:40. There was no accelerant used. Only products from the store were used. The perpetrators would then leave out the back door. Carlos Garza, a defense attorney on the case, would later say, evil, the yogurt shop was an act of pure evil. And when evil is let loose, it spreads and doesn't stop. I want to thank you for watching episode 4 of Wrong Place, Wrong Crime podcast. Please like and subscribe. Our next episode, episode 5, we will talk about and continue on that thought of evil and evil among us. We will begin talking about the suspect who I believe was one of the perpetrators there that night. So join us for episode 5, Wrong Place, Wrong Crime. Like and subscribe. Tell others about it. Thank you again.